So could we tell a bit more of the story then of how that Buick project turned out?
Yeah, but I think the other thing is, I think in the world, there's 3 races. There's Monaco for Formula One, there's Le Mans for sports cars, and there's Indianapolis. And
Sure.
The place has so much history, and when you've got 500,000 people in, it is, nothing else, nothing. Even Le Mans does not give you, those goose pimples. So anyway, going back to the project, we started, with a standard Lawler with the Buick engine in, and Jim was driving it, and you've really got to try and understand. So there's 2 things. One, I'm learning hugely about how, you get a car to go around Indy. And obviously, why does this thing not want to go around, the corners the same? And you then start to understand the setups and how the setups have evolved, over the years. And, just to, give you the sort of background, to an Indy car, you're running around.
Yep.
I've got my notes here as well because it's a while since I've been there. So, you've got 2.5 mile track. You've got a 9.2 degree banking. And, we've got this car, with a stock block pushrod engine in, with a cast iron block. I mean, it's heavy for a race engine. It weighs, 147 kilos. It's producing 900 horsepower. And, we've got this Sindel turbo on it. So throttle response is not brilliant.
Right.
And, we are producing as much centrifugal force through the banking as we are aerodynamic force. So there's a number of things that play a great part in this, is the relationship of the aerodynamic balance to the relationship of the C of G, because you've got 2 sort of forces there that need to be balanced. And
give that feel for the driver as well.
Sorry?
I just to give that balance, and then also that feeds into the confidence for the driver, right? That kind of psychological element of trust that they have to have with the equipment too.
Well, they do. And, going on to, to the other side of setups, you've got positive and negative camber, you've got cross weight in the car, and you've got 2 different sizes of rear tire because you've no diff. So we've got like what we call stagger. And really, it's the difference in the circumference of the 2 rear tires that turn the car through the turn. So you do steer it to a degree, but, the actual tires, when you're going down the straight, you're actually having to counter steer it because the car wants to turn left. And then when you enter the corner, you just gently ease off the steering, and the car then rotates through the turn. And the trick about, running cars on ovals is you do not want to scrub speed. If you're going in there and the car, what they did, the Americans call it binding up, and you can hear the engine, as it goes through the turn, it's having to sort of develop a lot more power to overcome the slip handle to produce the cornering force. And what you're trying to do is have the minimum amount of resistance from the tires to produce the lateral force to get the car to go through the turn. Simply. So that's what it is.
And all you have to do is do that for 500 miles.
Yeah, but it's then getting a car, designed to do that. And the beauty about working with Kenny's team, we had a design office. We had we had a machine shop, we had fabrication. We'd taken a lot of guys on from what used to be the old True Sports IndyCar team. Well, we could basically make anything. So we started, huge development, on weight distribution, bell housing lengths, manipulating the car in real radical ways to try and understand why this standard car would not work. And, it was sort of a, chicken and egg sort of thing. We would get the sort of mechanical balance right, and then I would go back to England. We'd be back in the wind tunnel. We'd develop then the bodywork and underbody to produce the right characteristics and the right center of pressure to match the sort of C of G that we were running at the time. And it was an iteration over 2 years, to be able to come up with this package. And, with the aerodynamics on an oval car, the car, when it heaves into the corner, the center of pressure must move rearward. You don't want the car to become loose. And when I say loose, oversteer.
Sure.
Because there is no oversteer on an oval. You're in the wall. So what a good driver is doing, he's driving to the understeer that he feels in the car. And a very good driver can drive right to the edge of the car, just having enough understeer that gives him the confidence, that this car is not going to go loose and put him in the wall. So they're the sort of things, that you're chasing, with the design of a very good Indy car. But the beauty about this car is it only had to do one job, and that was to qualify on pole. We didn't have to convert it to road course or street circuit. It was just to do that job. And that's, exactly what, we did in the month of May in 92.
Incredible. I mean, that must be such a rewarding achievement, right? After all that work, all that tinkering and the iterations of design and overcoming all those different challenges that you mentioned with so many layers of, tire engineering, of aerodynamic and mechanical grit. I mean, what was that moment like, right? When you see it cross the line, you see the average speed come in and your car's at the top.
Well, we knew we were going to be very good just by testing, and we'd given an awful lot of testing. I mean, if you talk to anybody that's been to Indianapolis, and it was a month of May, it was a whole month. And if you had a bad car, it was the month of hell. But, we had such a good car. And, we would sit there, we had two cars, Guerrero and Crawford. And, we'd watch everybody during the morning practice. And they'd be, working their way up the timesheet. And Jim said to me, or Roberto would say, "Are we to go and do a warm-up lap?" "Yeah, we'll go out." So, we used to take the car out. I mean, we warm up, at 2:34. And, you could see the people. They would struggle all day, and we were warming up at that, and we'd come back in, have a cup of tea, and we knew we were good. And we knew how to deal with the weather conditions, the track temperatures, because, we had a huge, advantage. And, the drivers had such confidence in the car. And I still have one of Jim's sort of printouts here, of his speed. I mean, wow, it was like, look at the 4th of May. So we just started, and the guys...
My birthday before that.
2:33. And his entering, I've got here his speed, entering turn 1 at 240 miles an hour. I mean, you've got to have a lot of faith in the car.
In your car?
Yeah, but it was, a privilege to work with those guys and, to have a baptism of fire and, learn and understand, about oval racing.
For sure. And am I right in saying then that after that, there was a move between you and Penske cars, right? A namesake in IndyCar, Roger Penske, now I think owner of the IndyCar series, of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and of Penske Motorsport that competes across many series.
No, what happened? That was, I worked at Lawless till 96. Bruce Ashmore left as chief designer. He went to Reynard. Reynard came into it. Reynard really raised the game in Champ Car, and was at Lola's, and 2 years worked with Nigel Mansell because he was our works team driver in Newman Haas.
Yes, of course. After winning the World Championship,
came over
to make the jump,
and just incredible driver, to do what he did, and just a privilege, to work with Nigel, because his qualifying on street circuits and road circuits was just so different to any of the American drivers. He would sit there and wait, and he could just put one lap in, like he would do in Europe, and just stick the thing on pole. And then he'd walk across and he'd sit on the wall. I think he was sort of psychological. He learned a lot of the oval racing from Mario, Mario Andretti. So two of them, were teammates. And, I did have the privilege, of working with him, in those 2 seasons. And then, we got to 96, and Nigel Bennett was retiring from Penske. So I got, the great opportunity, to go and work for Penske, one of the greatest race teams, in the world. So my career did not go into Formula One. I had the choice, do you go into Formula One or do you go and work for Penske? And quite honestly, at that time, there was no question. You go and work for Penske.